You don't choose this life. It chooses you before you can even walk. You're born in 17th century England into what most people would call a decent family. Not rich enough for silk, not poor enough to starve, just stable, forgettable. On the surface, that sounds safe. It isn't. Because your father holds a role the city desperately needs and quietly despises. He is the executioner, the man who carries out the final judgment of the law. And in this world, jobs like that don't just belong to a man, they belong to a bloodline. His father did it, his grandfather did it, and one day, so will you. Not because you dream of it, not because you volunteer, but because no one else will let you be anything different. Guilds won't accept you. Tradesmen won't train you. Families won't forget who your father is. You are born into a closed system, one that depends on your existence but refuses to welcome you. Society needs someone to enforce its harshest decisions, yet it keeps that someone at a distance. That contradiction becomes your inheritance. From the moment you take your first breath, your future is already drafted, not written in ink, but carved into expectation. You weren't born into poverty. You were born into a role. And roles like this rarely come with a way out. Your father is the law's final act. When a judge reads a sentence, people nod. When the court declares punishment, the crowd murmurs. But when it's time to make that sentence real, they call him. He stands on the scaffold so the system doesn't have to. Public executions in the 17th century aren't hidden. They're events. Crowds gather, children sit on shoulders, vendors sell food. Justice isn't private, it's a spectacle. And at the center of it stands your father, not as a villain, not as a criminal, but as the state's chosen hand. He doesn't decide who dies. He doesn't write the law. He simply enforces it. And yet, when the crowd goes home, they pretend he doesn't exist. They cheer when the verdict is announced. They fall silent when he walks past their door. He is necessary, but never invited. The church allows him inside only on rare occasions. Neighbors keep their distance. Parents pull their children closer when he passes. Society needs someone to carry its harshest responsibilities, but it refuses to absorb the moral weight itself. So it places that weight on one man and then punishes him for carrying it. You grow up watching this contradiction unfold every day. Your father is justice when the law demands it, and an outcast the moment the job is done. And one day, that contradiction will belong to you. For the first 3 years of your life, your world is small. Not small like cozy, small like contained. No neighbors stop by, no children knock on your door, no laughter drifts in from next door. In a century where privacy barely exists, your house feels sealed. Your mother never lets you outside. Not once. She tells you there are wolves in the streets. Not the kind hiding in forests. Street wolves. They roam the cobblestones, she says. They wait for children who wander too far. And to you, that makes sense. The city is loud. Carts rattle over stone. Men shout in taverns. Dogs bark through the night. From behind thin walls, it sounds dangerous. So you stay inside. Your mother becomes your entire world, protector, guardian, the one barrier between you and whatever waits outside. What you don't understand yet is this. The wolves aren't animals. They're people. She isn't hiding you from teeth and claws. She's hiding you from stares, from whispers, from the quiet kind of cruelty that doesn't leave scars you can see. You grow up thinking the danger is outside the door. You don't realize yet that the real threat isn't what hunts in the streets. It's what waits with folded arms and judgment in its eyes. You're 3 years old when it happens. Your mother finally takes you to the market. For you, this is freedom. The door opens. The street stretches wide. The world you've only heard through walls is finally real. You expect noise, movement, adventure. Instead, something shifts. People stop talking. Eyes turn. Not curious, not friendly, cold. You don't understand why. You check your shirt. Did you spill something? Are they angry at children today? Then you hear it. Executioner's brat. The words hit the air like a verdict. You don't know what they mean, but your mother does. She doesn't argue, doesn't defend, doesn't look back. She grabs you and walks fast, faster than you've ever seen her move, because she knows what you don't yet understand, that this is the moment everything changes. You haven't broken a law, you haven't harmed anyone, but the crowd has already judged you, not for what you've done, for who your father is. This is inherited stigma in its purest form, a crime you didn't commit, a sentence you didn't hear. From that day on, you are no longer just a child. You are a reminder, and the world will never let you forget it. That night, you wait for your father. You don't play. You don't sleep. You sit there, replaying the word in your head. Executioner. When he finally walks through the door, he looks the same as always. Coat bright, posture confident, almost theatrical, like a man stepping onto a stage. You don't let him sit. You want answers. He sees it in your face, and for the first time, he doesn't dodge the truth. He tells you what he does. He is the man the city calls when someone must face the law's final consequence. He doesn't choose who dies. He doesn't write the sentence. He carries it out. And then he tells you something worse. He's getting older. One day soon, it will be you. You shake your head. You had plans. Blacksmith, soldier, anything that doesn't end on a scaffold. Your father doesn't soften it. No one will let you. No guild will take the executioner's son. No knight will train you. No tradesman will forget your name. His father did this. His grandfather did this. This isn't a job offer. It's a closed door. You realize something then. You weren't just born into a family. You were born into a future that was decided long before you could speak. You turn 12. No celebration. No ceremony. Just a new responsibility. Training begins. Not with glory. Not with a blade in your hand on a crowded scaffold. You start small. You clean the tools. Axes. Swords. Ropes. At first, it feels mechanical. Maintenance. Preparation. Nothing more. But your father corrects you quickly. The rope must be treated properly. If it stretches at the wrong moment, a death meant to be swift becomes long and chaotic. The blade must be honed precisely. Too dull and it fails. Too thin and it chips. Precision isn't optional. In this profession, precision is mercy. You learn that before you learn anything about law or justice. You scrub wooden platforms after each public execution. You wash away blood. You wipe down iron fittings. You work quietly while the same people who demanded punishment stare at you as if you caused it. For months, you stay behind the scenes. You tell yourself you can handle this. It's unpleasant, but it's bearable, because you haven't had to watch. Then one day, your father calls you forward. "Come here," he says. And suddenly, you are no longer just maintaining tools. You are standing beside the scaffold, close enough to hear the condemned breathing, close enough to understand that this isn't preparation anymore. It's inheritance. At 14, the training changes. Cleaning tools was only the beginning. Now you learn the body, not from books, not from neat diagrams, from real corpses. Your father shows you where muscles connect, where bone resists, where joints give way, not to horrify you, but to teach you control, because control is everything. At first, you turn away. The smell hits you. Your stomach twists. You look at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but the table in front of you. Your father doesn't yell. He just waits, and eventually, you look. You learn where to cut quickly, where to avoid hesitation, where a mistake would make things worse. You begin to understand something unsettling. This role is not chaos. It's calculated. Executioners don't only end sentences. In many cases, they also assist in extracting confessions under legal authority. That means understanding how long a body can endure strain without collapsing. You hate it at first. You feel sick. But over time, something shifts. You stop reacting to what you see. You start focusing on how it works. Technique replaces emotion. That's the moment it happens. Not when you pick up a blade, not when you step onto a scaffold, but when you stop seeing pain as shocking and start seeing it as procedure. That's when the child begins to disappear. The day arrives without ceremony, no drum roll, no announcement. Your father simply tells you it's time. You put on the black cloak for the first time, not to hide your face. Everyone already knows who you are. They know where you live. They know your name. The cloak isn't about anonymity. It's about transformation. It turns you from a neighbor into a symbol. You step onto the scaffold. The wood creaks beneath your boots. The crowd stretches in every direction, some silent, some restless, some disturbingly eager. The condemned stands nearby. You don't look at his family in the front row. You've learned that lesson already. Inside, your heart is racing. Your hands feel heavier than usual. You know one thing very clearly. You cannot afford to hesitate. Because if you falter, if you fail to perform cleanly, the crowd will not blame the court. They will blame you. So you steady yourself. Back straight, grip firm. The sentence is read. The final moment comes. You move with the precision you were trained for. One controlled motion. No spectacle. No chaos. The crowd gasps, not because it was brutal, but because it was efficient. Skill earns a strange kind of respect, but it does not earn acceptance. As people disperse, some avert their eyes, others mutter curses under their breath. You've done exactly what the law required, and yet, walking home, you understand something. Mastery doesn't change your place in the world. It only cements it.
Your father retires. No celebration, no farewell. Just the quiet understanding that the title now belongs to you. You are the city's executioner. And for the first time, you notice something strange. You're not poor. In fact, you're paid well. The city compensates you generously. Public order has a price, and you are part of that cost. There are other privileges, too. By custom, you are allowed to take the clothing and belongings of the condemned. Boots, cloaks, belts, jewelry. It's part of the compensation. But to everyone else, it looks like you're wearing the remains of someone's worst day. Imagine this. A man is executed on Tuesday. On Thursday, his daughter sees you in the market, wearing his coat. To you, it's fabric. To her, it's memory. That's when resentment hardens into hatred. You are financially stable, yet socially untouchable. The church limits your presence. Some services are closed to you. Others allow you to stand at the back. Neighbors keep distance. You are needed, but never embraced. So when it comes time to marry, the options are narrow. No respected family offers their daughter. You find someone else on the margins. Someone who understands what it means to be judged before being known. Your wedding is small, quiet, no grand blessing. But inside that small house on the outskirts of town, you finally experience something rare. Acceptance. Not from the city, but from one person who doesn't see you as a symbol. Just a man.
Years pass. Executions blur together. Faces fade. Crowds change. Your name spreads beyond the city. People know you. Some fear you. Some whisper about your precision. But reputation doesn't quiet the nights. When the square is empty and the house is silent, memories return. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. You tell yourself you were only doing your duty, and you were. Still, the weight accumulates. Then something shifts. You become a father, a son, a daughter. For the first time, your world feels bigger than the scaffold. Protecting them becomes your only real priority. You want them safe. You want them untouched by what shaped you. But time doesn't negotiate. Your hands aren't as steady as they used to be. Your shoulders ache longer. Your grip tightens just a little too hard some mornings. In this profession, precision is survival. A mistake isn't embarrassing, it's dangerous. The crowd that once watched in silence would not hesitate to turn on you if you faltered. And then you see it clearly. The same wall your father faced. If your son doesn't inherit the role, no guild will take him. No trade will protect him. Society has not changed. So you sit him down. You explain. You hand him the tools. You watch the resistance in his eyes, the same resistance you once carried. And you understand the real tragedy. It was never about the condemned on the scaffold. It was about this moment, destroying innocence to preserve survival. Because in this world, justice isn't just a system. It's a burden, and someone always has to carry it.